Hi everybody, it's Gail from Gail's Bookish Things. I'm just here today with a little ink swatching review, I guess you would call it, or comparison. So yesterday I showed you some new inks I had received from Van Ness Pens, and I was working with these inks and I thought, I need to do a comparison with a few of the samples with the inks that I already have. And then I also had a request to compare the Fortaleza with some other similar inks. So let me show you what I've done. I have the Rohrer and Klingner Alt-goldgrün already. That's a bottle I have. It comes in a bottle like this. Don't know how many millimeters that is. It says here 50 milliliters. And then I have the Edelstein Olivine, which ended up being quite a bit darker. It's got some really cool shading here on the edge. So that one I'm kind of eliminating from this comparison, because once I swatched that, I'm like, oh yeah, that really is a much darker ink. And then I have the new ink, the Vinta. I'm calling it Leyte, but I don't know if that's correct. And then the other that are similar is the diamine. Somebody tell me if you know the correct pronunciation of that, please. Sepia, diamine, ancient copper, and Vinta Leyte. And look at, I have that wrong. This is not Leyte. That is the Fortaleza. I was trying to write this when the inks were still wet, so I was concentrating on not getting my hands all coated with ink, and instead I messed up. So that's the Fortaleza. So this was really good for me to see how similar some of these inks were, in particular the Alt-goldgrün with the Leyte. When I wrote with my dip pen, this is what the Rohrer and Klingner Alt-goldgrün looks like. Again, a little bit sloppy because I used my dip pen, or did I? Yeah, I think I did. I'm trying to remember, because some of them I just dipped in the ink to write with, and I'm pretty sure this was my glass dip pen. Let me get this junk off to the side. The Alt-goldgrün has a nice, trying to bring it close, shading quality to it that I really liked. And when I saw samples swatched, like on the computer screen, it looked like right up my alley, like the perfect green ink. I tried a sample of this from Donna, and I really liked that, and so I bought a bottle. But that's a little bit out of the comparison running for now because it's quite a bit darker. And then the Vinta Leyte has shading more as it goes down, but it seems to me like the shading is less distinguishable the more it dries, whereas the Rohrer and Klingner Alt-goldgrün, the shading remains, if that makes sense. It's just as it dries that becomes less noticeable. I was trying to do a sample. It was kind of funny. Let me see, like here yesterday, and I forgot which pen had which ink, so I had to start all over, but it was like they are so similar in swatching. It's crazy. This was the Leyte in Golden Espresso, the Kaweco pen. And then in my brass Kaweco, the Alt-goldgrün. So you can see the writing here and here, how similar they are. And even here, I was like, wait, which is which? And I totally got confused, so I had to start over. But I think what I ended up doing works better. So this is the two that are super similar. Let me show you some normal writing samples with those. When you, when you use the TWSBI pen, these are all the TWSBIs. This is Tomoe River, as you can see, versus on the Cosmo paper. So the top two here are both TWSBI Eco Broads, Cosmo and Tomoe River. The Cosmo just grabs that ink and it makes a broader line, which I really like. I really like a broad pen. And in my way of thinking, this is what a broad should be. However, on the Tomoe River, it's bigger than a fine, but it's not a huge broad line, which is okay. It just reacts differently on different paper, but it's pretty amazing, really, how different it looks to me. This is much darker. This is lighter. I feel like you can see on the Cosmo paper more shading. If you look at the print, you can see, like, even the top of that L to the bottom of the L, much more shading, I feel, than is visible, there we go, on the Tomoe River. However, that being said, this was a very nice writing experience. I said this flow is very nice on Cosmo, goes down fairly wet. It kind of stays wet for a second, but it soaks in pretty quickly. This is a green that I really like. It's sea kelp is the English translation, or close translation to that. And then this was also like really nice writing. The line narrower, still the same pen, same ink, no dryness, sense of dryness whatsoever. It's a more smooth experience. It's more glidey. The pleasant aspect is definitely here with this pen and ink, and the flow seems much more consistent on Tomoe River paper. So when I'm writing for a while, I've noticed that these inks tend to run dry. The Rohrer and Klingner Alt-goldgrün on Tomoe River, I didn't like it, and I have a bottle of that, as I showed you. It's again a narrower line because the paper isn't as absorbent. The shading is more apparent in the print, which I really love that look. But it definitely felt more dry to be writing, and the more I write with the Alt-goldgrün, the drier the pen feels. I haven't tried it in all my pens, but in my Kavekos and now in the TWSBIs, that's all I can remember anyway for now, it just feels dry, and I don't like it. But when it starts out, it's a beautiful shading green, but it just, I guess the feeds can't keep up with my writing, or something about the ink. It's just a drier ink. But look at it here on the Cosmo paper. It is amazing. The shading there is right up my alley. That is a favorite ink feature. If I can get shading in an ink, I love how that looks. It doesn't have to, but if I'm going for the aesthetics, that is really something that appeals to me. The flow of this ink seems to run slightly more dry with longer writing times. I wrote, starts out deeper in shade, and then it fades, and the shading contrasts are more apparent than here. So whereas this seems to write more steadily in both cases, on both papers, the Alt-goldgrün just starts to run dry. Shading seems more apparent as this dries, though, than this. So I think I'm repeating myself. This is maybe a more consistent feeling ink, but the drying effect, this has more shading, and this becomes more monochromatic, although you can see slight variations. Maybe you can see that in the eye there. You can definitely see it here in the print. So it's a more subtle shading, I guess, would be a way of describing that simply. And then this is my scripture writing notebook. I like to write a favorite verse or two down each day that I've come across recently. You can see it pretty evidently here. This is Tomoe River paper. This is a notebook from, is it Paper Penguin? Do I have that name right? From Etsy. And anyway, the Vinta Leyte or sea kelp and the Alt-goldgrün, this is much darker. This is much lighter, but the shading contrasts are more apparent here. I had been writing for a while, so when I started writing here, the pen seemed like, it just seemed like it was dry. It was getting the lighter tone. So I twisted down the piston and got it to come out a little more darker here than it was starting out. But of course, again, that's after riding with it for quite a while. So I love this, but when it fades into this light color, it's dry. It's not pleasant at all to write with. I don't like it. This is cool here, though. Look at the numbers. That's really neat. So it's kind of funny because I have this ink. I guess I've been disappointed in it. I think it's beautiful. I need to try it with White Lightning and get the right balance there, and I may love it like I thought I would based on pictures I had seen. If I had to pick between the two of these now, I think I would go with the Vinta Leyte because it just seems like a wetter ink with a better flow. Although both of them, after a while, seem like they started to feel dry, except for on the Tomoe River paper. That was probably more what I experienced on the Cosmo, but super neat looking, I think. These shades of green, these warm shades, are something I really, really like. So then that was kind of what I was really wanting to compare, but I also, yesterday when I was playing around with these inks, thought that the Vinta Fortaleza is so similar to my Diamine Sepia that I already have. So I did a little swatch sample here. Let me show you this real quick. This is the Diamine Sepia, Diamine Ancient Copper, and the Vinta Fortaleza. So just at a quick glance of the swatches, I see slightly more warm golden tones there, and this is almost more maybe not as much shading. When it dries, I in some places don't like this quite as well, and here I smudged it, but this was with the dip pen, so you can see hopefully maybe some of the variation here. The Ancient Copper is a wonderful color, but it's, would you say it's a little more red or orangey than the other two? And then there's some shading I'm seeing in the Fortaleza. But they're all quite similar. It's just as this dries, I think it's more matte or more brown looking. But it's a deeper tone too, which I like. So let me show you here. I did a little swatch of each. Sepia first, Fortaleza next. This is the Cosmo paper again. This is unlined from a notebook I got from Jet Pens. So this swatch, the variations there, I'm more drawn to than that. This seems richer somehow, but this has got some really beautiful shading too. And you can see on these little S curvy things, there's a lot of nice shading. Not as much shading with the Sepia. And then I did little hearts, and I just did some zigzag lines to see. Overall, I'd say that the Fortaleza is just kind of almost a little more brown, where the Sepia has a slightly more golden tone. Both really nice to write with on this Cosmo type paper. And let me show you here on my Tomoe River paper. Again, here's the Fortaleza. I liked writing with that yesterday. But then I noticed that some of the shimmer was getting caught at the top of the piston, that little round piece. Let me show you here. This blue one gives me trouble sometimes. So right in here, there was, or was it down, right down in here? One of the two spots. I think I cleaned these pretty well. I notice I still have water in here, but the shimmer stuff was collecting around the base, and I don't like that. I mean, the shimmer is neat, but I don't like that it's collecting in my pen. There is some shimmer that I can see here at home. It may not be perceptible via the venue you are watching it on, but it's almost more like, to me, a silver. You would think it'd be a gold shimmer, but it's like little tiny flecks of sparkle, like a neutral tone, but more, well, it depends on how it hits the light, but my first impression was that it was overall more silvery, actually, than what you would expect gold. When I first was sampling the Vinta Fortaleza, I put port here, so I'm not sure which is right because my ink bottle has a smudge on it. I had a couple big blops come down, and then I tried to spread those to see what it would do. When it dries, it looks to me almost like a dried paint. And maybe you can see the shimmer in there, which looks, or in there. It looks more silver to me, like just a neutral sparkle versus a tone. Look at the names here. There's a lot of wonderful shading that's going on there. Let's see if there's any other. These were all the Fortaleza, I think, but I was just making a note to myself that I wanted to do a little video comparing those. So anyway, this looks very similar to the Sepia. Again, the printing, I think you can see more shading in the printing than in the cursive, but it is there. They are a real similar shade. I'm trying to think if I wrote with those anywhere else that I could give you a good sampling of it, but this is probably the best. So I guess, again, it's a matter of personal preference. Having this that's so similar to this, I don't think I would buy the Fortaleza right now, but my first impression with writing with it was like, wow, this is amazing. It had this really nice shading. It felt like a very nice wet ink, but the more I used it, it started to feel dry, kind of, and I didn't really like that it was sort of clogging up my, not clogging the pen, but that sparkle was accumulating in the pen. So I'll put that one on hold for now. Not that I have to buy anything. If I do decide to buy another green, I would be very inclined to purchase the Vinta Sea Kelp, the Leyte. And it challenges me, though, also to try the Alt-goldgrün again with the right amount, if I can perfect that, of White Lightning, to see if I can love this ink as much as I thought I would, seeing it sampled online. But these are super close, so I kind of don't want to buy one where they're so similar. That seems very redundant to me. But I do want to love the inks that I write with and not tolerate them. So the interesting thing is as I've written with different inks, the ones I love, I'm not eager to get out of the pen so much, and I keep picking it up. Here's the TWSBI Eco, the Vinta Leyte, super wet on the Cosmo paper here, but it just dries more monochromatic. So that is okay. Just depends on what you're looking for. But for like everyday writing or my little story writing, kind of a more monochromatic, writing is what I want. And then I think the fancy ones are fun for a short little journal entry, or like writing a letter or something to somebody. So I hope that is helpful to anybody considering trying one of these inks. I certainly have enjoyed these Van Ness inks. I love the Laguna. Don't have it inked up right now, but I'm going to put it back in a pen soon. And that one was very consistent wetness, flow on all sorts of papers. It didn't seem to run dry. I was surprised that my TWSBIs were running dry with this, because normally these pens are super good for really any of the inks. So that may say something about the dryness of the inks. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts below if you've tried any of the Van Ness, Vinta inks. I bought mine from Van Ness Super quick service. It's really great. Give me your thoughts on your favorite colors and what's worked well for you. What inks you find of Vintas that run more dry or more wet. And any other thoughts you have about these colors here. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. See you soon.